Hey everybody, and welcome to RPG Horror Stories with DnD Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a Dungeons & Dragons player who has a pivotal moment in their character's story arc stomped on by a spotlight hog. A story about a dungeon master who lures players in with a cool concept, only to flip the script on them in order to turn them into furries. And much more. And speaking of things that are furry, here's a kitty to bring our wholesome levels up, before we bring them right back down. There we go. Now I think we are ready to jump right into these stories. Everything is about him, even my backstory. By Reddit user, Mien. So I'm fairly new to D&D and found this group online. 5 men and me, a woman. And no, this isn't that kind of horror story. They're all wonderful in that respect. I get along great with all of them. I've become super close friends with DM, and I'm even going to Europe in 2 months for a vacation, and I'll meet DM and probably Archer too while I'm there. We've been playing this campaign every second Saturday for a year and a half. We got through Mine of Phandelver and just finished Storm King's Thunder. Today was the first session after that, and we spent about an hour discussing character goals and activities in the time skip, and out of character, how we want our personal character stories to go, now that the campaigns are done and backstories are well fleshed out, as the DM has been really good about weaving all of that into the modules. We had Archer, Wizard, me as the fighter, Druid, and Various. I say Various because he's had 4 different characters, but changed 5 times, as he switched back to an old one most recently. None of them have died, he just switches often, and even within that, each of his 4 characters has had at least 1 or more class changes just because. We lost one guy, Wizard, partway through though, due to his kids and his wife needing his attention occasionally. I guess that's acceptable. I'm just kidding, I love Wizard. He was the best at roleplay and held the party together in character. After Wizard left, Various seemed to start talking more, and he talks a lot. Always clarifying rules or questioning mechanics. You know the type. He can talk for 10 plus minutes straight sometimes, always clarifying his homebrew class, which the DM does go over and modify. He's only ever had 1 standard class, and if I'm counting right, over 4 characters, he's had 6 to 7 different class changes. His changing characters so often really screws up party cohesion in and out of character, especially after losing the best role player, as the rest of us struggle to find the motivation in character as to why we care about his flavor of the week. One of the other guys, Archer, got sick of it, and the last few months has been super hostile to us in his frustration. It got bad. His character abandoned the party after the final battle last session, and he's not continuing on, even though we are now doing backgrounds. We've all talked to Various about his behavior, but he's clueless. He's a nice guy, but doesn't understand what he's doing. He was never mean or hostile though, but just doesn't get it. He keeps talking, even when the rest of us clearly want to move on, and even outright say so, but he just keeps on talking over us. So today, we got into the personal background story quests, and first up is me. We do a bit of setup getting Druid and I back together, and we head out. We make up some flimsy excuse as to why Various's 4th character left, and then we randomly bumped into his first, who abandoned the party after like 3 sessions. But he's back now, and it's all fine. Whatever. My character's just happy to have more backup, as now 3 people have to somehow sneak into Neverwinter and kill a powerful necromancer, who's taken over her noble family's house, and it turning the chasm in the city into a portal or something, while experimenting on the citizens, and turning them into undead and worse. On a fight on a bridge, one of my character's sisters shows up, obviously altered by the necromancer. My fighter manages to get about 100 feet ahead of the rest of the party, with enemies now separating her from them, in order to grab her sister and hold on to her before she steps into the portal. They exchange a few words, though I get dominated and sent away. She then fireballs us, and the fight ends, as my sister is stepping into the portal, giving her final words to my character. Then, Mr. Various starts talking over the DM about how his character is crying over the deaths of his spectral wolves. I miss what the DM says, though the tension of the moment is ruined. Druid, DM, and I are just kind of flabbergasted as he goes on about the souls of his already dead spirit wolf friends. Finally, I have to say something, so I say, well, I guess I suggest we go to camp and come up with a plan. No dramatic moment of my character reuniting with a family member after years of tension being built up. No emotional moment of her worst nightmares coming true. The necromancer and my character have been talking over a sending stone for years, and he was the big bad behind the end of Phandelver. He's been being built up by the DM since the beginning of the campaign. She's been begging him not to harm her family for years, making deals, threats, promises, everything in secret from the rest of the party. Necromancer has shown up many times throughout the whole game, and I can't even get 2 sentences spoken to me before Various draws attention back to himself. He can't even remember who this guy is, and doesn't realize how important the moment was. I'm so disappointed, and I know my whole character arc is going to be like this. Man, talk about a drag. To have all that build-up with the Necromancer and OP, and OP's character's sister being taken away in what could have been a great scene and opportunity for some fantastic roleplay, only to be ruined by Various's need for the spotlight. Now, I know OP has said that they talked to him out of the game about this bad habit, and that it hasn't changed anything. But if OP is worried that this is just going to continue, I would say talk to them again, and whenever he starts relapsing into that behavior, the DM or the player, in as kind a way as possible, should tell him to wait the moment it starts happening. Like when OP's sister was walking into the portal, saying her last words to OP's character, and Various started to speak over DM, the DM could have looked at him and told him to hold on, that right now it's OP's moment, and after that we'll get to yours. That would be my suggestion anyways. Let's move on to the next one. The Dungeon Master did a bait and switch magical realm, by Reddit user ThatWaterAmerican. Back in college, someone on my floor wanted to play Pathfinder. I was down for it and was told to prepare for a bayou, swamp-style setting, with swamp witches, gators, and all that. I come up with a big dumb Lenny from Mice and Men type character in overalls. Our party was hired to track down a witch who was terrorizing one of the swamp villages. We get to her pretty quickly and have a boss fight. Just as we're about to finish the witch off, she opens up a portal that sucks up the entire party, Evil Dead 2 style. We wake up on a dirt road in a pleasant forest, wholly disconnected from the bayou, and just start walking. A sign ahead says there's a town coming up, so at the edge of the forest, we make a perception check. A friendly werewolf in noble clothes steps out from behind a tree and comments about what unusual specimens we are, then says that we shouldn't be here. He says that we need to follow him if we're going to survive this place. The party kind of shrugs and goes along with it, not understanding what's happening. The werewolf takes us to his estate, a cliffside mansion at the edge of the nearby village. Once inside, he reveals that in this world, everyone is an anthropomorphic mammal, and also a sorcerer. There are wolves, foxes, rabbits, catfolk, and raccoons as the major races, with lots of minor races too, and that all of them can use some degree of magic. He says that if we want to go back to our reality, that we need to talk to the Fox King, basically an Arcanoloth, as he's the only one powerful enough to open up a portal back to our world. However, all of the animal folks will be terrified of our party, 2 humans, a dwarf, and an elf. So we need disguises. The werewolf, who is actually just an anthropomorphic wolf, opens up a wardrobe to reveal fursuits of the various races. And he says that they'll essentially polymorph onto us, and that we'll adopt the stats of those creatures, and we will be indistinguishable from the regular people of this world. That was the end of the session. We immediately asked if this was going to be a fetish furry story, though the DM said that this was his own original world that he was really proud of, but that he didn't want us to be characters already living in the world because it would be too much to explain. Which is why he had the introduction in the swamp, but said he expected our characters to wear the suits the whole game. We said that his world makes sense, but the suit part is really weird. Also, why did the wolf have these suits? After that, the dungeon master did not schedule another session and began actively avoiding us. Well, that is kind of baffling. Why the hell wouldn't the DM just tell the players what the game actually was going to be, instead of leading them on with the Bayou Swamp setting, which actually sounded pretty interesting, not to mention it being a world full of furries. And OP did pose a good question. Why would the wolf have a closet full of fursuits when it's a furry world? I guess the DM could tell that the group was kind of put off by this, as he never scheduled another session. So I guess that question will remain a mystery. Let's move on. Player blames game for his own bad choices. By Reddit user John Frodo. Content warning for role-played essay. My group was settled into an apocalypse world game and having a great time. We had a gunlugger, a hoarder, and me, a battle babe. Usually, we met at the Game Master's house, but this night, we were gathered at mine. My place was much closer to where Hoarder left from for gaming, and this prompted him to bring a member of his youth group who'd expressed interest in our game and needed to be around people that night. This additional guest was a surprise, but we didn't mind. Well, that right there is messed up. Bringing someone that no one knows to a person's house without a heads up or asking first is a big no-no. For context, we were all 27, and the newcomer was just over 18. He proceeded to make a hocus, a person leading and empowered by a cult, and wouldn't you know it, he chose to be the priest of a sex cult. He strutted around town with a massive purple dildo attached to his codpiece, his only piece of clothing. Dude, what the hell? Why did the GM even allow this character? He then began acquiring followers left and right. That is, pressuring them into service. Already, I was feeling greatly uncomfortable. My battle babe investigated the commotion and immediately ran into him. After about 10 seconds of chit-chat, he commented on how pretty I was, and invited me to join his sex cult. I declined, of course, but then he pulled a gun, ordered me to drop to my knees, and then gave me a choice. Kiss his giant purple dildo, thereby symbolically pledging allegiance to the cult, or take a headshot. He went aggro and rolled 10+, meaning that this choice was now mechanically enforced. If I didn't give that plastic phallus a kiss, I would take massive damage, or maybe even die. I looked to our GM and asked what I could do about the situation. He shrugged apologetically, saying, "That's what the rules say." And this is where the GM is supposed to step in and say no. I end up caving in, vowing to visit revenge upon him at some opportune moment in the future. I don't remember much else of the session, because I was seething. What irritated me the most, though, was the Hocus's player's refrain. As he would say, "This game is so effed up." He said it with a chuckle anytime the Hocus did something sexual, abusive, or just unkind, and pulled it off. as if it was the game's fault that he had forced my character and several NPCs into unwanted sex acts. Perhaps he believed that, because the game made the situation possible, then it was to blame for permitting such depravity. Perhaps he was deflecting his own guilt. I don't know. The Hocus's player did not return after that session. At our next session the following week, the Hoarder apologized profusely. He insisted that the Hocus's actions were unlike anything he'd seen at their youth group, though I've since learned that he was disinvited from the youth group not too long after, for other reasons. The Game Master also apologized for letting the situation get out of hand, as we were all caught off guard. The character of the Hocus was then hanged by the townspeople, and we continued on with our game, blissfully, if willfully, ignorant. We all agreed that, in the future, the group needed a decent amount of warning before a guest joined us, and that we needed to have higher vetting standards. In the years since, we've also incorporated lines and veils, as well as a policy akin to the X card, in order to keep us all feeling safer. So, lessons learned, right? Well, first, I need to reiterate again. Bringing someone along to a game to someone's house without asking first is pretty inconsiderate of Hoarder to do. But that isn't the biggest offense here. When the Hocus player presented the GM that character concept, that should have been the first red flag that this player wouldn't take the game seriously, and was intending on doing some messed up crap. And when the player stated that he was threatening OP's character with what he did, that's when the GM should have stepped in and put a stop to it. He should have then told that player that he needs to make another character, or just sit out from the game, especially since it was making OP uncomfortable and angry. Though, at the very least, everyone took this ordeal as a learning experience, and put some safeguards in place to make sure that something like this wouldn't happen again in the future. But, seriously though, who looks at that character concept, and then says, okay, you're good to join the game? Let's move on. Had to let a player go after they just used me as free entertainment. By Reddit user, Available Regret 304. Recently, I had to say goodbye to a player because I realized how much they sucked the fun out of me as a DM. My players all loved my homebrew world and my campaign, and that is the biggest compliment for me. I am currently on hiatus from DMing because of exams, and most of my players were a bit sad, but understanding. I promise to be back in fall though after my exams, and that I will continue giving my best. Everyone took it well, just not one player. That one is a 30-year-old woman who behaves like a 15-year-old brat. She messaged me in privacy, saying things like, "Are you sure you cannot sneak in a session from time to time?" When I denied that because I'll have to study a lot for my exams, she replied, "Oh, but come on, how hard can it be? It'll be a nice little break." So this player has never DM'd before, so I kinda get where they're coming from. It doesn't seem like a lot of work, but preparing sessions for our homebrew world is hard. Coming up with ideas, little quests, with enemy encounters, and so on and so forth. It is very time consuming, and I'm sure everyone who has DM'd can agree on this. When I told her that I really won't have time for it, she started to get angry with me, saying that I exaggerate on how much time it takes to prepare for a session. That if I just don't feel like DMing, I should be honest and stop lying to my group. When I told her that I really wouldn't have the time, she dropped the bomb that made me kick her. She said, "You owe it to us. We are your players, and we keep your world rolling. Without us, you wouldn't even be able to let your creation live." While I agree on that last part, that yes, without my players, I wouldn't be a DM, I said that I didn't owe them crap. I am DMing for them because I want all of us to have fun together and to escape from reality from time to time. But it's no obligation since 1. No one is paying me, 2. I didn't sign a contract, and 3. No one is forcing me to do it, and that I find it very rude of her to treat me like a free-to-use content machine. But she went on, and then I decided to kick her, explaining it to the others who were shocked. We kicked her from the server, and hopefully, she will have a bit of self-awareness in the future. Remember, always treat each other nicely. Holy crap, talk about an entitled brat. And OP said that this player was 30? Something tells me she was never told no growing up. I can only imagine how much stress, school exams, and running a homebrew game at the same time could put on a person, and can understand OP putting the game on a hiatus for that time. And it sounds like all the other players understood this, except for this player. I can never understand how some people can be so entitled that they can act the way this player did, and think to themselves that they're in the right. So I don't blame OP for kicking her out after that. And hopefully, the game goes well for the rest of the players and the DM when they continue this fall. And I hope OP rolls all nat 20s on their exams. And if you have a dungeon master running a game for you, remember to occasionally let them know how much you appreciate them and the work they put into running a game for you and the players. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.